Tariq, earlier you mentioned the word resilience, and we hear resilience frequently in supply chain discussions today. What's the meaning of resilience? So what do supply chain leaders make of that?
Great question. Look, I think resilience from a supply chain standpoint is really looking at your supply chain's ability to be able to adapt to any shocks that might come along. And when you're talking about resilience, it's really a question of how long can you intrinsically survive the shock, or how long does it take you to be able to adapt your supply network or your operations to be able to work in that new environment. And I think historically, in an environment where we were all focused on cost and service and so on, many of us in supply chain operations set up supply chains to optimize that, which might have meant, one source of supply for raw materials, for APIs, or even for production. And I think nowadays, with the need for resilience, some of the things that all of us are looking at is having multi-sources of supply, right? So if I have an issue at one supplier or one factory, I can support that from others, and therefore be able to withstand some of those shocks. And I think back to something we talked early on, part of being resilient is also linked to your inventory policies, right? How much inventory are you willing to hold? And the more inventory you're willing to hold, then perhaps the less multi-sourcing you need. The less inventory you're willing to hold, then to be resilient, maybe you need more sources of supply, within your network.
And maybe linking back to our previous discussion, not just how much inventory you're willing to hold, but which type and where is it in the network also is a design choice.
Exactly.
It occurs to me as you're explaining that, Tariq, a couple of things. One is it's kind of a two-dimensional metric, isn't it? It's how bad of a shock do you take, and then how long does it take you to recover? So challenging to measure. And also, in terms of resilience, it would be a design feature, wouldn't it? It wouldn't simply be something that occurs naturally. You would have to design in resilience. I have this idea of padding that you would wear. If you're going to get hit, you would have padding. Would that be a correct interpretation?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that if you think about the topics of resilience and agility, the way I would look at it is resilience, exactly to your point, is something that you design in when you're designing your supply network or ecosystem, because you think about the degree of redundancy that you're building in, or the degree of inventory that you're building in, where you're holding that inventory and so on. So that's all part of your network design and your policy design. And the agility piece is how you then choose to run your operations on a day-to-day basis.
Excellent.